How do you do, ladies and gentlemen? You've heard quite a bit about Jane Bryant's legal misadventures in this area, and you may be wondering how it is that a man that Stephen Douglas has been calling an abolitionist and a black Republican in public for some months. He probably calls me cruder names in private, but I wouldn't know. How a man like that wound up representing a slaveholder attempting to regain custody of Negroes as fugitive slaves. Well, I'll tell you a little something of how that came about. I came to Charleston in October of 1847 in time for the fall term of the Circuit Court, as I had done for several years previously. I came partly to see my family members in Coles County, but mostly I came to work. I usually got some business when I came to Charleston around court day. Often the lawyers that lived in Charleston, perhaps Linder or Ficklin, would want my help with a case. I was at the hotel, sitting on the porch with my chair leaned back and my feet up, telling some stories to an appreciative audience, when I saw Dr. Rutherford come up with an air of exasperation about him. I had barely finished my story when he rushed up to me and said he needed to talk with me privately. He was soon telling me the facts of what some have come to call the Matson slave case. I thought I knew why Dr. Rutherford came to me. It was not only because I was a good lawyer, but because he believed me to be an anti-slavery man. Dr. Rutherford and I had talked about slavery some. I had told him that my family left Kentucky partly on account of slavery, that I could not recall a time when I did not think and feel that slavery was wrong, how that when I saw couples of slaves going on the road past our farm in Kentucky as a small boy, that it had disturbed me, and that later as a young man in New Orleans I had been troubled by the sight of slave auctions. And I told him that I hated the thought of those who had escaped bondage being taken back to their unrequited toil. But I think he may have forgotten that I also said that the part of the Constitution that provides for the return of runaway slaves, as the Constitution says, persons held to service or labor, was as much to be obeyed as any part of the Constitution, and that to flout any part of the Constitution was to risk tearing the fabric of all our liberties.